lot of questions about rugs. People don't know what size rug they need to get. Does my furniture stay on the rug? Does my furniture go off the rug? Does my dining chair stay on the rug when you pull it out? Well, today we're going to talk about all of those things that can be really confusing.
Welcome to Emilee and Lora. I'm Emilee.
And I am Lora.
The biggest question is, what size rug do we get?
Yeah, that
Right?
one. Yeah, that one can be really hard for people.
And it's hard because it's also tied to a monetary value. So the larger the rug typically is going to be more expensive. And when
Yes.
you're trying to be on budget, you think that you can kind of cut at corners sometimes by going with the smaller size. But we're here to tell you that doesn't always pay off.
Your living room. One of the biggest issues that we see is that the rug is too small. That your furniture should sit on the rug. So wherever you're trying to anchor your space in a room, that rug is the foundation for that space. So just think of it that way. It doesn't have to exceed a great amount either way, but it is important to get your furniture to sit on it. So sometimes that does come down to what are the rug sizes that are available.
Yep.
And what are the cost of the rugs. So if you cannot get all of your furniture on the rug, it's important that you get the biggest piece of your furniture at least halfway on the rug.
Yeah. If you can get every front of those legs onto the rug, it's like it's holding up onto an island, right? And you got to kind of show that story, and the foundation is the rug.
Yes.
So you don't want to go too small. You also don't want to go so big where it takes up the entire room and you don't see any of the flooring underneath.
Right, you do not want 2-3 feet of extra rug hanging out in your space.
Yeah.
The only time that you would want to do that is if your floors were in really bad condition. Maybe you're living in a condo or an apartment or something, can't really do anything about the floors. Well, then you might want a larger rug to kind of cover those spaces. But that's not what you want to do with furniture. With furniture, you really need it to be just a border, like you're framing a picture. We see a lot of times where people will have a special heirloom or a special antique rug they found that they love, but the rug is not the right size. So they will either lay it in front anyway, and they'll just kind of try to make that their focal point in the room, and that never works.
No.
That looks like you've put a really tiny rug, and it looks totally out of scale. So one way you can do that is you can layer your rugs. But if that rug is really much smaller, if you have a 4x6 beautiful rug that you just have to see, and your space really needs to have like a 9x12 or an 8x10.
That's too much.
That's too much. You need to use that rug someplace else.
Yep.
It can be in your kitchen. It can be in a powder room. It can be in an entryway. It can be in so many other wonderful locations where you can show that rug off. Rugs can also hang on the wall. A lot of places people will get prayer rugs in their travels, and they will hang those rugs, those handmade rugs, on the wall because they're
Super
usually
cool.
small.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It's a piece of art.
And then when it comes to the dining room, we do have kind of a sweet spot for when you pull out your chair and how much space you really need. You don't need it to be so large where you're pulling out the chair forever and then it makes your table look really tiny.
Right.
So that sweet spot is
About 24 inches.
24, yeah.
So anything more than that, then the rug starts to seem too big when you put the chairs into the table. So the way to do that is most people, when they scoot away from the table, scoot about 20 to 24 inches. And that gives you enough room to scoot away from the table, get out of your chair, and not fall off the back of your rug.
Yes.
Definitely do not want to get a rug that just your table fits on and the chairs when the chairs are under the table, so that when you go to sit on it, you actually pull off the rug. Now, you and your guests are sitting kind of backward, right? Because two legs are on the rug and two legs are not. And then when you go to get up, you are going to move that rug.
Yes.
And it's going to be a tripping hazard. It's going to be hard to get your chair back up underneath the table, and ultimately could damage your rug at the same time.
Another obstacle we run across is rugs being in the wrong direction. That can go one of two ways. One is the rug actually has different color variants between the direction it is being shown. One side is going to show and lay lighter than the other side.
That's right. It's the nap of the rug.
Yes. And then the other directional issue we have is where you're going to place the rug with the furniture. So we've seen lots of different examples of this.
Yeah. So the one issue is that people will have a long room and they want to spread that rug as far as they can across the room. So what they'll do is they'll lay the rug on the longest section, and they will start to put their furniture within that rectangular space.
Yeah.
And that starts to feel exactly like it sounds. It starts to feel very oddly positioned.
Yeah.
And it is better if you cannot find a rug that fits your space to either get carpet cut and bind the outside of the carpet. So just go and look for some really cool patterned carpet. There's so many amazing options out there, and they're really affordable. And then you can just have it bound on the outside by a carpet company. And now you have a rug that would fit maybe a 12 by 15 room or a larger space, but you don't have this huge expense in a rug of that size. Sometimes you can actually get two patterned rugs that don't have any specific pattern that you can't blend together, so that if you had those rugs sewn together, you really wouldn't be able to see where the pattern stops and starts. That also can be done by a carpet person. You just take it into them. I have these two rugs. Can you please sew these together and match these patterns up? And now you've got a rug, one single rug that you bought two very affordably, and it fits your space.
Yeah. But definitely, like, you don't want to have, let's say with like a medallion type style rug, you're going to go with that style and that design. You want the center focus to be shown, right?
That's
Around that medallion.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've seen sectionals that will take out kind of the whole perimeter, and then you don't see the medallion because there's an ottoman there or something,
Yeah, that is a really good example. So especially if you have a sofa that has a chaise. And now what's happened is that you have this sofa that has a chaise and you're trying to put it on the rug, and now your coffee table has to slide over because you have a chaise. And now there is no way to get anything on that medallion. So the only way to make that work is you have to buy a really wide, big rug. And maybe you can do that, and that's perfect. But if you can't, then that medallion is always going to look off center and not in the right place.
Yeah.
And it feels really awkward. So try to shy away from a rug that has a medallion in it, because when you won't really realize it until you get it home, and then you're like, oh God, I can't get this to work.
Yeah.
And not look weird. You just want something that has an all over pattern.
Yeah.
A more contemporary rug is what we call that. So no matter how you shift it, the pattern is the same all the time. So another issue that we see is people using the wrong size runners. If you have a hall, you need to make sure that that runner runs the hall.
It doesn't stop in the middle.
Right. You don't want to stop it in the middle. But if you can't do that, and you can get two rugs that are the same, and you can pair them with a little space in between, and then you still are getting that continuous line.
Yeah.
Or you can, once again, go get a bound carpet that appears like a rug, and now it's exactly the size that you want. But we often see that, is that the runners just don't fit. Like, they'll fit in the front or the back, or they'll put it right in the middle, and then you have all this extra space at each end, and you really don't want to do that. That also creates kind of a tripping hazard, because as people walk up and down, you'll never get that rug where you want it unless you tape it to the floor, which we'll talk about that in a minute. The other great place for a runner is in a lot of people's kitchens. You really want to use a rug that you can wash easily clean. Maybe it's a natural woven rug or something and you can just spray it out outside. Maybe it's an outdoor rug, because now you really can take that and spray it outside. It's very conducive to, anything that you drop on it. Just remember that it doesn't necessarily protect your floor underneath unless you have some kind of solid pad, because all rugs have some kind of woven material in them, unless they are those comfort shock absorbent type rugs that have the padding in them. Those really protect your floor. But any other rug, whatever you spill on it is going to go down. So you do need, and kitchens are wet, you have a lot of liquids around the space. So make sure that you put a solid pad underneath your rug so nothing can go through underneath that rug, get hidden for long periods of time, and maybe damage a wood floor. If you want rugs in your home and you have windows and you have a lot of natural light coming in the space, you will bleach out the floor around, because that's what happens. And when you pull that rug out someday, which probably won't happen until you sell your house or you get a new rug. And if you get a new rug, you're just going to have to get one that's about in that same footprint.
Size,
it's an issue that you have with natural light, and there really isn't any way around that unless you live in a cave and you just close your windows.
Well, that just makes it more important that if you're going to do a rug, this is all the information that you need to make the right choice. Because for each room in each footprint, it can only really handle a certain rug.
Well, I will tell you why that is incredibly important, is that if you just went out and bought a very expensive, hand-woven, hand-dyed rug, right? Which is, you normally hear people call them Oriental rugs. But those rugs will bleach if they're in the sun.
Oh, yeah.
So that is something that you do need to think about. So if you're going to spend that kind of money on a rug, be very cautious about where you're putting it into the window. Or if you have a skylight above, know that that will bleach out the rug over time in that space. Flip your rugs around the room. So like Emilee said a minute ago, every rug has a light and a dark side. So you kind of have to know that. If you're going to be flipping your rug, you need to like the rug on the light and the dark side both, because you're going to have those two different colorways in your space. So maybe that's seasonal. Maybe, in the summer when it's brighter, you turn it to the dark side because it's more forgiving. And then in the winter, you do just the opposite and you flip it to the light side. That also keeps the longevity, saves the longevity of your rug. Your rug will last longer and it will wear better if it is flipped around, just like your cushions on your sofa or your chairs, the same thing.
As far as locations go for rugs, I mean, you want to pick out a rug that is appropriate for each location. So like, let's say you have an entryway and you don't really have a mudroom outside of this space. You need to know that you might be bringing in some moisture, some mud. Anything can come in through the door, right?
It's the same thing for the kitchen. You have to put something underneath that rug, because all of that's going to seep through all those fibers and all those woven materials. And it's going to sit underneath that rug, and you could have mold, you could damage your wood floors if you have wood floors. If you have porcelain floors or ceramic tile floors, they are a lot more forgiving. You might have some dirty grout, but outside of that, your tile should be just fine.
And you can use rugs in the bathroom. They don't just have to be bathroom type rugs, but you're definitely going to still want to know what type of rug you're putting in there because of the extra moisture.
That's, people love or hate rugs in their bathroom, and there's a good reason for that. Because rugs just absorb everything, especially when they're in a moist environment, right? So I would suggest using one, like the company Ruggables, right? They're a great resource for that, because you can pull those rugs up and you can throw them in the washing machine. And you don't lose the aesthetic of the rug or the shape of the rug. And they do have a way to protect the bottom of the floor as well. And I think they work really well for those types of wet environments.
Yeah.
You know, something we probably should have mentioned at the very beginning of this video is that rugs are art for the floor. So they don't just anchor a space, they actually add a lot of character to a space. So it is really nice to have that pattern, that art, that warmth, that color, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve inside of your space. Start from the floor up. And that's why designers, that's where we start. We start from the floor up.
Talk about a curated space.
Yeah.
I mean, it all is layered upon layer upon layer, and that's what makes it look so designer, you know?
Yeah.
So even on carpeted rooms, you can layer a rug on a carpet.
Great segue there.
Yeah.
So that is so true. So let's talk about that. So basically, when you layer, that bottom layer needs to be like carpet inside of a space, right? You don't need it to go wall to wall, but you need it to go outside of the space that you are trying to anchor. Just like we were telling you for a regular rug. And then you can come in and you can put a smaller size on top of that. But when we say smaller, be cautious of how much smaller.
Yes.
You really shouldn't be any more than about 18 inches all the way around smaller, right? So, and usually if you're 18 inches, that means that that decorative color rug is now, or patterned rug, is now on top of the main rug, which is either a solid, it should be a solid colored rug of some sort, a natural rug. It could be a woven, a jute, a sisal, something like that. And then you put your other rug on top of that. You'll have that border that goes around the rug that feels like they are meant to be together.
Yeah.
And you can't see where you've done that because that second rug, the smaller rug, is underneath the furniture. Even if you can see it from your chairs, you know, because the chairs are raised, you can see the legs, that's okay. Don't worry about that. As long as they're all coming together, you're fine.
Yeah. And, you know, also talking about coordinating rugs, when we have like a really large open space, a lot of times you're going to have different areas that you want to define. And what do? You do not want them all to have the same rug.
Yeah.
But you need to coordinate them. So you need to think of the bigger picture, right? So we've given some examples here of just great ways to coordinate different rugs together.
Yeah, we actually, in this video over here, we'll link it. It's a living room makeover that we did for a cute little bungalow that we did for a sweet couple. And, you know, we had to make sure that all spaces that were coming together, that you can see from every angle of each space, that all those rugs blended together very nicely. The patterns were different, but the colors were the same, but complementary to one another. So that is a good example. So you might want to pop over there and see that.
So we mentioned earlier about some ways to hold down the rug.
Yeah, this Gorilla Grip, and we will link it down below. It's a great product. We've used it on many different flooring types. It's worked for us very well. We always suggest that you always test anything that you're going to attach to any type of surface. Test it in a spot that you can't see, maybe like inside of a closet or something like that, just to make sure that it's not going to do anything to your flooring. Thinking about making a rug stay in place is rug pads. And you need a rug pad on carpet too. So when you lay a rug down on carpet, it is going to buckle and move. So you need to put a pad down underneath that. That is a universal floor pad. We'll link that as well.
So with rug pads, we know that it does help position things, but what are the other benefits of using a rug pad?
Protecting your floor. And it protects fine rugs. So they're investments. They are art.
Oh, absolutely.
And you don't ever want them to ripple, because when they ripple, whatever is raised is going to be worn more than any other part of your rug. So it's very important to keep that rug flat and to never vacuum it with a vacuum that has a brush on it. That is incredibly damaging to rugs. use a vacuum that has the plate on the bottom of it, and that's going to save your rug. You won't get those little pills or those little tears, or start to notice the fibers are sticking up and you think it's a cheap rug or it's not holding up, or people are being too rough on the rug. A lot of times it is either the vacuum you're using or the vacuum your house cleaner is using has that bristle brush on it, and it's just eating the rug. Yeah.
And now with outdoor rugs, it's pretty obvious when you look for a rug, you want one that says outdoor.
Use them indoors, outdoors.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about outdoors for a minute. Some people think that's really crazy. Like, why would you put a rug outdoors? But they do the same thing outside as they do inside. They anchor spaces. They make spaces feel cozy, cohesive. They bring things together. They add color, texture, pattern, all these things that just accentuate the outdoors.
Oh, we have a couple videos here that you will just love what we've done.
Whatever you want for your outdoor space, there is an outdoor rug for your space. I promise you. And we love them.
Now, you don't need a rug pad for an outdoor rug.
You don't.
Just so you know.
You don't. But you do need to make sure that it is anchored down, that it's not going to move around. So as long as your furniture is on it, that's usually heavy enough.
Yeah.
That keeps everything down so that it's not slip sliding away, because those are made of nylon or plastic. A lot of them are made with recycled materials, and they move, right? And because it's slick.
Yep.
You need to be careful about that.
The nice thing too that we found, a little trick, is when you're trying to hide like the tubing through the tank.
Yeah.
You can always cut little holes and do that, and that way you avoid a tripping hazard and hide that. So outdoor rugs can come in handy.
Yeah, you can also cut a hole in your regular rug too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes.
Now, I know you're going to think we're crazy when we say this, but some people have to lay their furniture in a space that it's floating inside of a room. And when it's floating inside the room, the electrical outlets are in the floor. And how do you get your lamp that is plugged in underneath your rug? It's kind of challenging, right? So what are your choices? Well, you can run that cord all the way to the edge of the carpet and all the way under, but you're always going to see it. And if it's in a walk area, that is also a tripping, hazard. So what we have done is we will cut a small slit in the rug for the outlet to go through it, and we put a special type of glue around where we've cut that, so that doesn't fray.
Away, yeah.
Right. And that is one way to do it. I am not suggesting that you do this to a really high-end rug, but if we're talking to an affordable rug that you're not going to keep forever, that is just
fun, trendy, whatever.
It's what you're using right now. It's going to last you 5 to 10 years. Don't worry about it. Just cut the hole, put the glue around it, and you'll like not having that cord hanging around.
Or you can always refer back to this other video we did about the light bulb that you can replace with the remote.
You can.
And get rid of the cord altogether.
Yep, you can cut the cord. You can put a LED rechargeable light bulb in that, and
boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
But if it is your grandmother's lamp and you want your daughter or your son to inherit that someday, you might not want to do that.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So we're kind of hoping some of these might help you in your rug shopping. And if you have any questions for us, maybe something we didn't cover that you've always wanted to know how to do, just ask us down below, and we'd love to answer.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.